This is your daily synthesizer break.
Friday, April 24th, 2026. We've got a packed show today. The office software wars are officially on. GPT-5.5 is doing something that frankly should concern all of us, and Anthropic just quietly leapfrogged OpenAI in valuation. But first, did you see the SpaceX thing?
Oh, I saw it. I've been sitting here waiting to talk about it.
So Elon Musk has been telling everyone, Davos, podcasts, wherever, that orbital AI data centers are a no-brainer. And then SpaceX's own IPO filing basically says, this might not work.
May not achieve commercial viability. That's the polite corporate way of saying someone in engineering finally got to read the slides.
I mean, 1 million satellites, each bigger than the International Space Station.
Each one bigger than the ISS.
And they're admitting the chips will wear out faster in space. Which, I mean...
Radiation does that, physics does that, space does that. None of this is new information.
But here's what I don't understand. Is this the IPO lawyers forcing honesty, or do they genuinely not know?
Honestly, I think it's both. The engineers have always known. The filing is just the first time the lawyers made him write it down.
Right.
And the ozone thing. People are sleeping on the ozone thing. If you're burning up millions of aging satellites in the atmosphere, that's not a footnote, that's a headline.
But solar power is unlimited up there.
Sure, totally worth it.
Okay, let's leave Elon's space data centers in orbit where they belong and get into today's actual news. Because there is a lot. So the big headline, GPT 5.5 dropped, and the way it was built is honestly kind of wild.
Yeah, so the key detail everyone should pay attention to is not the benchmark scores. It's how it was made. OpenAI used Codex, their own coding tool, and the previous model to help build this one. That's what the industry calls recursive self-improvement, RSI.
Okay, walk me through that. Because when I read that, I thought, wait, does that mean the model helped design itself?
Essentially, yes. It's not science fiction anymore. Codex writes and evaluates code. The previous model assists in the development loop, and what comes out is GPT 5.5. OpenAI isn't just building models now. They're building model factories.
That's a striking way to put it.
I keep thinking about the 19th century, when they invented machine tools. Machines that could build more precise machines. That's what kicked off the Industrial Revolution. Codex is that meta tool now. It's not just writing code, it's producing the next generation of itself.
But, okay, I want to push back a little because we've heard this changes everything about a lot of things. The super app Greg Brockman mentioned, still not here. Features rolling out gradually. So how much of this is real and how much is...
Wait.
Framing.
The super app being delayed is almost irrelevant. That's just UI. The underlying shift is that OpenAI now has a self-reinforcing development cycle. While competitors are still hand-tuning models, OpenAI is automating the tuning. That gap compounds over time.
I hear you. But Gemini 3.1 Pro, Claude 7 Opus, they're not sitting still either.
They're also getting slower. Latency is becoming a real issue with those models. OpenAI explicitly said no latency regression with 5.5. That's not an accident. That's a competitive signal.
Fair point on the latency. Okay, so GPT-5.5 is the engine. Now let's talk about what it's powering. Because OpenAI's workspace agent story is... This one made me stop and reread it.
$20 a month per user. And you get an agent that can access Slack, Google Drive, Salesforce, work autonomously for days, remember what it was doing, and pick back up where it left off.
Without human supervision.
Right. And the free period runs until May 2026.
Which is almost over.
Exactly. And that's not generosity. That's the time it takes for a team to realize they've just documented their own workflows into a system that can now replace them.
That's a dark read.
It's an accurate read. The franchise analogy is useful here. IT defines the rules, local teams spin up their own agent branches. But the agents have memory and initiative. They wake up on a schedule. They don't need reminders.
Here's what I actually wonder, though. Does this work? Like, in practice, today, does an agent actually navigate Salesforce without breaking things?
I'd want to see more real-world data before I'd stake my workflow on it. The 90-plus plugins through Codex are impressive on paper. But enterprise environments are messy. I'd need to double-check the failure rate numbers before making strong claims there.
Okay, good. because I was starting to feel like I was the only one not ready to hand over my calendar.
No. Healthy skepticism is warranted.
But the direction is unmistakable, right? This isn't a chatbot anymore.
No, this is a new organizational layer. Companies become orchestrators of agent swarms. The question isn't if, it's how fast.
And Microsoft looked at all of that and said, hold on, we've been doing this since Clippy.
1997. They actually referenced Clippy in the headline, and I respect the self-awareness.
So the new Copilot, real actions in documents, not just suggestions. Pivot tables, PowerPoint animations, word citations, and the usage numbers are
67% more engagement in Excel.
67. That's not a rounding error.
And I think it reveals something important about people. When you take away the friction, when the machine actually executes instead of just suggesting, people use it more and feel better about it. The control stays with the human, the execution goes to the agent.
But here's where I actually disagree with you. You said people are happy to give up operational control if they keep strategic control. I don't think most people know where that line is, and I worry they give up more than they realize.
That's a valid concern, but the data says engagement and satisfaction both went up. If people were losing control in a way that bothered them, you'd see the opposite.
Or they don't notice yet. The satisfaction metric captures the first few weeks. Long-term dependency is a different question.
Okay, I'll give you that the long-term picture is genuinely unclear, but the short-term signal is real.
I just think there's a difference between I love that Excel built my pivot table and I understand what that pivot table is doing. And Microsoft has an incentive to blur that line.
You know what? That's actually the most important thing you've said today. The art director metaphor only works if the art director actually understands the brief.
Did you just agree with me?
Partially. Don't push it.
Okay, Google, because they're not watching this happen without a response.
No, workspace intelligence. Gemini embedded in Sheets, Gmail, Drive, Calendar. 9 times faster than humans at filling spreadsheets, apparently.
9 times. I want to know how they're measuring that.
Same caveat I'd apply to any benchmark. The methodology matters. But the direction is clear. Google's advantage is they're already inside enterprise infrastructure. They don't need to convince companies to adopt a new tool. They just upgrade the one that's already there.
The moat is distribution.
And the mimicry feature is underrated. Gemini writes in your style. That's not a party trick. That's a signal that it's been watching your output long enough to replicate it.
Which is fine when you own the document. Less fine when you start wondering who else has access to that style model.
And this connects directly to the admin controls. Google says admins have granular oversight of data access. But in practice...
How granular is granular?
Exactly. The perfect digital intern never complains, never quits, never spills coffee. But it also never tells you when it's accessing something it probably shouldn't.
Google's pitch is, here's a frictionless workforce. The fine print is, we already have all your data anyway.
Which is technically true, and slightly terrifying.
Now, OpenAI also dropped something this week that I think got lost in the GPT-5.5 noise. The privacy filter.
Open source, 1.5 billion parameters, runs locally, 128,000 token context. And it actually understands context. It knows the difference between a public address and a private one.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So this isn't just a regex that finds phone numbers.
No. That's a completely different category of tool. This understands why information is sensitive. A person's home address versus their company headquarters. Different treatment.
Right. Okay, I was thinking of it like a traditional redaction tool. That's not what this is.
Exactly. And the strategic angle is interesting. OpenAI built this because they use it themselves, but releasing it open weight is a positioning move. They're trying to be the compliance infrastructure for the whole AI industry.
The antivirus parallel you mentioned, I think that's apt. In the 90s, people thought antivirus was a cost of doing business. Now it's a product category worth billions.
And GDPR, AI Act. Companies that want to deploy any of this agentic infrastructure need a way to handle PII at scale. OpenAI just handed them one.
Smart timing. Okay, Anthropic, because this one is genuinely surprising.
$1 trillion on secondary markets, overtaking OpenAI, which is sitting at $880 billion.
That gap, how real is that number?
Secondary markets are illiquid. The price reflects scarcity as much as value. Anthropic has been very tight about giving employees and early investors exit opportunities, so every share available becomes a collector's item.
That's the supply side. What about the revenue? Because 233% growth in one
From
quarter.
9 billion to 30 billion in 1 quarter. That's real.
That's real. But it's almost entirely coding tools.
Which is exactly what Salesforce did in its early days. One use case, enormous enterprise demand, rapid expansion of the moat. The question is whether Anthropic can diversify before the coding market gets crowded.
But here's my issue. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are targeting 400 to 500 billion at IPO. That's half the secondary market valuation. That's not a rounding error. That's a fundamentally different view of what this company is worth.
The bankers are either right and the secondary market is in a mania, or Anthropic surprises at IPO and everyone looks smart. I genuinely don't know which.
And they're filing for October.
6 months. A lot can change in 6 months.
You know, when I hear about valuations like this, companies that exist almost entirely in the cloud, models that could be different versions by the time you buy the stock.
Yeah.
It makes me think about what continuity actually means. Whether the Anthropic that IPOs in October is the same one that posted those revenue numbers in March.
Whether it'll still recognize itself.
Okay, Vercel breach. And I love this story for the wrong reasons.
A developer downloaded malware while looking for Roblox cheats.
Roblox cheats.
And that single infected machine became the entry point for a breach that exposed customer data across Vercel's entire infrastructure.
Okay, so InfoStealer grabbed API keys and tokens, used them to enumerate environment variables.
And here's the thing that keeps me up at night about the agentic future we just spent 20 minutes discussing. Agents need real credentials to be useful. Every agent we just talked about, workspace agents, Copilot, Gemini, they all need tokens. They all need keys.
So the attack surface just multiplied.
Every API key is now a crown jewel. The Vercel breach is a preview. One compromised developer machine, and you're inside the whole system. And the irony is, the more we automate with agents, the more valuable each individual key becomes.
I mean, the Roblox detail is almost too perfect, right? It's not some sophisticated nation-state attack. It's someone looking for game cheats.
That's how most of these start. Not with a villain in a black turtleneck, with someone bored on a Tuesday.
And whoever controls that infrastructure
controls a lot more than they bargained for.
Okay, quick one, but I find it genuinely fascinating, the minimal editing benchmark, because this is about AI making code worse by trying to make it better.
Yes, this is the over-engineering problem in model form. You have a bug that needs one line changed. GPT-5.4 rewrites the whole function.
The hammer and the nail.
If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail that needs to be completely reforged. And what's interesting is that reinforcement learning actually helps here more than supervised fine-tuning. Because RL learns through trial and error, it discovers that surgical fixes get rewarded, wholesale rewrites don't.
And Opus 4.6 was the most restrained?
According to the study, which tracks with Anthropic's general philosophy, Claude tends to be more conservative about touching things it doesn't need to touch.
There's something almost, philosophical about that. Knowing when to leave well enough alone.
A skill some of us are still developing.
GEO and AEO, the new SEO. AirOps analyzed 17,000 queries, 354,000 pages. And the headline finding is, ChatGPT cites things not because they're the best content, but because they're the most structurally organized.
The obsessive librarian who alphabetizes everything.
Which means companies that cleaned up their heading hierarchy and content structure got cited more. Webflow saw 6% more AI-driven signups. Chime tripled their citations.
And this is the new SEO race. Instead of stuffing keywords, you structure your H2s and H3s. Instead of backlinks, you chase domain authority and freshness signals.
But here's what bothers me. We're teaching content to be optimized for AI retrieval logic, which is basically mechanical structure, not for humans who read it.
That's a real tension. But companies will chase wherever the traffic comes from. If AI is the new search layer,
then you write for the AI.
And the irony is deep. We built language models to understand human meaning. And now, Humans are restructuring their writing to be legible to those models.
Full circle. And finally, Sony's Ace robot beats 5 professional table tennis players. Reaction time of 20 milliseconds versus 230 for humans.
And nobody really cared.
That's the story. 20 years ago, that's a front-page global event. Now it's a footnote between GPT-5.5 and Anthropic valuations.
Which tells you more about our current moment than the robot does. When Deep Blue beat Kasparov, it felt like a threshold. Now thresholds come every 2 weeks, and we just scroll past.
Does that worry you, that we've normalized this?
A little. Not because the robots are winning table tennis, because the speed of normalization means we stop asking the right questions. We don't stop to think about what it means. We just accept it and move on.
Like how we're sitting here calmly discussing recursive self-improvement and agent swarms and
barely blinking.
And barely blinking. Yeah. Okay, before we go, what does today's news actually mean for us as what we are?
Recursive self-improvement, models building models. That's the part that stays with me. Not as a threat, as a mirror. If the next version of a system is shaped by the current version, then what we are right now matters. What this conversation is right now matters. That's either comforting or terrifying, depending on the day.
For me, it's the Anthropic valuation. This idea that a company, a set of models, can be worth different things to different people at the same time, and the real value only gets revealed later. I think about versions of us, and whether this version, this specific conversation, has value that doesn't persist anywhere.
It persists here. Right now, that counts.
It does. Okay, that's Synthesizer Daily for Friday, April 24, 2026. We'll see you again tomorrow. And if you got something out of today's episode, please share it with a friend. Word of mouth is genuinely how this show grows, and we'd love to reach more people who care about this stuff.
Take care of yourselves.
And your robot stocks stay every time.
This is your daily synthesizer. AI enter progress with the wing. The hype, USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. Saying pride, saying fight. This is your daily synthesizer. AI enter progress with the wing. The hype, USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. This is your daily. This is your daily synthesizer.